Alright, so you just need to fill this information in on your note packet in the appropriate spot. Okay, so we were talking about the restoration, which was the restoration of the Stuart dynasty of Charles to the throne in England, to the monarchy. And Charles did not produce an heir. He did not produce someone to take over for him after he expired. And so the fear was that his brother, James the First, who in this drawing looks suspiciously like James Marsden, was going to take over. The problem is that he's a Catholic. And a lot of England, who had just come out of Cromwell's reign, which was very Puritan, and England, which had become very Protestant, was very fearful of a Catholic on the throne. So, what? A Catholic on the throne? Not again. Been there, don't want to go back. So, James Marsden, King James comes back in, and he begins by instituting these pro-Catholic policies. And he appoints Catholics to high positions in office. He promotes Catholic tolerance. And so it's a fear that it's going to get back to the way it was before. And so some high officials in England, they encourage another couple to come in. And that's going to be William of Orange and his wife, Mary. So once they come in, that is going to lead to James abdicating the throne, leaving the throne, giving up his title and his crown. He's going to flee from England to France, where they are much more tolerant of Catholicism. And William and Mary are going to start the Glorious Revolution, or the Bloodless Revolution. They're going to recognize Parliament supremacy, and they're going to allow an English Bill of Rights, which is going to grant basic civil rights and liberties to all Englishmen. Now, along with those two revolutions, you have the scientific revolution that's going on as well. The scientific revolution is also called the Age of Reason, and there are multiple reasons why the Age of Reason happened now, but it largely goes back to the Renaissance and a total change in thought. So some of the major areas that we have during the scientific revolution are astronomy. We're going to see this guy Copernicus, and Copernicus is going to give a really radical idea here. He is going to say that, all right, Elizabethans, I know you believed that man had a lot of importance and that the sun revolved around Earth, and I'm here to tell you that is wrong. The Earth revolves around the sun. All planets revolve around the sun, not the sun around the planets. And that was a radical idea because in Elizabethan times, remember Queen Elizabeth with Shakespeare and all that jazz, there was a common thought that God was at the head and that God had created man in his own image, so therefore man was very, very important. So because man is very, very important, wouldn't it make sense for the sun to revolve around man? Everything revolves around me. Get it? Copernicus says no. He observes through this crazy new thing called a telescope that the Earth revolves around the sun. That's called the Copernican theory, or the heliocentric theory. Now you've got another guy, Galileo, who's going to use that same telescope to prove Copernicus right. Galileo's not going to get quite as fair of a shake in the whole thing, and the Catholic Church is going to label him a heretic. He's later going to get an apology from the Pope, but it's going to do little to ease the hunger pains. Alright, then you've got this guy Kepler, also in astronomy, who discovers that the Earth does not rotate, that planets do not move in a circular motion, but they move in an elliptical motion. Alright, you've got other things during the scientific revolution here, like math. Arabic numbers come into play that we see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. The way that we recognize numbers is called Arabic numbering. That comes into play here. The decimal point, pop, comes into play. Alright, we've got chemistry. We've got Boyle, and Boyle's law is created. We've got Isaac Newton sitting under the tree there, very angry because an apple has just fallen on his head. But oh wait, I've discovered gravity. You've got Lavoisier, who is naming hydrogen and oxygen. So yeah, it's a big time for math, chemistry, big time for astronomy. Also in the scientific revolution, you have medicine. Huge developments in that. You have Paracelsus, who is using these chemicals and causing chemical reactions. You've got anatomy, continued to be studied. We talked about Da Vinci and grave robbing and these Renaissance artists studying anatomy, but now it's going to continue on, and people are going to finally start realizing just what makes people tick. Then you've got Francis Bacon, and Francis Bacon goes with the scientific method. It's also called the inductive method, and this is how it works. Number one, you observe phenomena. You see something happening, and you watch it. You try to figure out what is causing this to happen. Then you accumulate data. Number two. Number three, you experiment. Number four, you draw conclusions. And then five, you test those conclusions, or you test those principles. So, once you've taken science, you're familiar with that. And then number six, you become a famous man of science, but that is just a given. All right, and then lastly, we come to the Enlightenment, and the Enlightenment is a huge deal. That's why I'm waving it around here. Get it? Huge. Yay, wave it. All right, the Enlightenment is going to be focused on humanism, science, rationalism, and philosophy, and also democratic thought. So, a lot of the inspiration for our founding documents are going to come from the English Enlightenment. All right, so here we go. Let's look at some of these handsome devils. All right, you've got René Descartes. And René Descartes comes up with this famous saying that you probably have heard, I think, therefore I am. So Descartes is going to place a big emphasis on the value of thought. Now, he also said, doubt it if you can't see it. He has to be observing things. He says that for him to understand something, for him to believe something, he has to see it. So, have doubt in your mind. It's a good thing, Descartes says. All right, now, we don't want to put Descartes before the horse. Ha, ha, ha. All right, so we've got John Locke here. John Locke is known as the father of empiricism. He's also the father of political liberalism. He wrote 2 treatises on government, which is going to be very influential for people like Thomas Jefferson, who is going to use it as a justification that the divine right of kings is not divine at all. It's just something that they made up from their own imaginations. He's also going to give us something called an essay concerning human understanding. And an essay concerning human understanding is going to be important because it's going to give us Enlightenment principles. All right, 4 of these big guys. Number 1, there is a law-like order to the natural world. Things are born, things die, the leaves change color. Predators eat prey in the food webs and in the food chains. Nature has a law-like order that it follows, and it always will. There's a religious belief called deism that's going to rely heavily on some of these principles. All right, natural rights. Number 2, that humans are born with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Should sound familiar. Ding, ding, ding. But Thomas Jefferson actually got that from John Locke, who originally said life, liberty, and property. So these are natural rights. They're God-given rights to everybody. Number 3, the power of human reason. Humans are not just God's puppets. They have the ability to reason and think for themselves. And 4, society will continually improve. It can only get better, is what Locke is arguing here. Now, this is a very lofty goal, but it's what he's arguing. All right, you've got this guy Voltaire. He's kind of the comedian of the French philosophes, and he says, use reason to rediscover natural law. He felt that man had become corrupted from God's law, from natural law, and so we use reason to get there. We don't use blind faith, which he considered idiocy. We believe in reason. All right, you've got this guy, Rousseau, a father of education in a lot of ways. He believes this idea of the noble savage, that civilization actually corrupts. It doesn't improve. We are born, as John Locke would say, a tabula rasa, a blank slate. And as Rousseau would say, we are very dignified in that. So, Native Americans, they are the true civilized people. And it's the Europeans that would be uncivilized because they have been overeducated. They've lost that natural spark. The Enlightenment, think of it, a light. It's all about a natural spark. All right, then you've got Baron Montesquieu. He's going to write the spirit of the laws. This is huge for governments. He's going to give us the separation of powers, the idea that power should be divided amongst as many branches as possible so that none gets too powerful. And then lastly, for the ladies, we've got Mary Wollstonecraft. And Mary Wollstonecraft wrote a book called The Vindication of the Rights of Women. And she's going to argue that women can do and should do the same thing as men. Now, one tidbit about her is that her daughter was Mary Shelley, who ended up writing Frankenstein. So, there you go. You've got some huge Enlightenment thinkers there. You've got some philosophes, some that you guys are going to be using in your philosophe salon. So, just fill in those on your note packet, and we will talk about it on Monday.